This review is of a 5-axle mobile crane by Tadano. It is the ATF 220G-5 EM3, and this model of it is made by WSI Models. Out of the box comes the trays and a bag containing a manual, and we'll see that shortly. And there's some intricate knife work needed to cut the tape around the box. Lifting the lid, and it's a limited edition model in the colours of Midtstøl of Norway. The manual for this model is very good. It has a complete parts list to start with, and all of the features are described very well by the use of photos. Pretty much everything that you need to know is covered, and the only detail really missing is a reeving diagram for the hook block. But everything else is covered very clearly, and so this is one of the better manuals that you get with crane models. There's some information about the real crane on the box, and it would have been nice if there had been even more detail about it in the manual too. Out of the box there was one issue with the model, and that concerns the counterweight, and these grooves should all be lined up. Now, it's not actually a simple matter of just reversing the bottom plate, and the reason for that is that there's only one direction it can go in because of the little tab on it. But as you can see, the posts are just screwed in. So to correct the problem is a simple matter. We just need a screwdriver and undo the screws of the two posts and reverse them. Here is the base plate now reassembled, and when we connect it through, we see that the grooves are basically all in the same direction. As always, we'll get the crane ready for the road first, and to get it started we'll take some rope off of the rope drum. A key is provided to operate the drum, and there is a positive brake on it, so you press the drum in to release the brake, and then we can unwind some rope and take it to the front of the crane. Two hooks are included with the model, this larger hook block and also a single line hook block. Here we've put the big block on and found some chain to tie it to the cab, but this big hook probably blocks too much of the driver's view. Next we mount on the fly jib, and you lock that in place with just one steel pin. Here we're putting it in with fingers, but tweezers are included with the model if they're easier to use, but there's no problem pushing the pin in. Two sets of handrails are included with the model, one for transport and one for when it's operating, so we will clip in the transport set. There's also an optional spooling drum which you can fit onto the boom, but looking at photos of the real Midtstøl crane, it doesn't seem to have it, so we'll take it off. If you're lucky enough to have a matching support truck in Midtstøl colours, then you can form a very good transport pose. We start with the crane flipped over, and there's a ladder at the front under the cab, and as we move on to the chassis the detailing is very good. The transmission is fully detailed and there are many tanks, and the suspension is detailed also. The big tyres have a decent tread pattern. The driving cab has got beacon lights on the roof, and there's a nice door handle, mirrors and steps. But the real highlight of this model is the decoration. The Midtstøl colour scheme and graphics are certainly something unusual, and it goes well with other great detailing such as branding in the sidewalls of the tyres. Let's take a closer look at the decoration on the boom, and you can see how intricate and high quality the graphics are. Moving to the back, and there are nice textured steps leading up, and the wheel hubs are different on non-driven and driven axles. The cab interior is very good, and taking another close look at the graphics you can see how detailed they are. And there's more detailing in the equipment above. On the back of the crane there are more great graphics visible in transport mode, and there are other details such as beacon lights and hydraulic hoses. There's a big toolbox with a timber carrier below it, although photos of the real crane don't show this. Looking on the other side of the crane, once again it's the graphics that stand out, and the metal fly jib is also very good, and it has metal pulleys throughout. Looking at the boom head, there are also metal pulleys, and they're all separate pieces. Another area of great detailing is the carrier engine, and there are different grills and textured surfaces. First up, we'll take a look at the steering axles, which means we'll take a look at all of them. The steering on this model is notched, so the steering will hold any pose that you set. On the review model, the steering was of varying stiffness across the axles, but that's not really a problem. The other feature that it's good to see is that each of the axles had sprung suspension, and that works very well. So with all these axles, how does it drive along? And it moves along well enough in a straight line without zipping off into the distance. And if we check the bounce factor, there's plenty of it. Next, the giant steering fingers adjust the wheels, and the model will trace out a curve, although it's all a little bit stiff when you push it. We are now on site, so we will swap out the handrails on the crane, and then we can get on with setting it up. The metal outrigger beams are 2-stage and they're very detailed, as you can see, and you could set them at part extensions if you wanted. You lower the pads in the usual way by unscrewing, and it's always nice to see smooth piston cylinders instead of screw threads. If you want, you can use pins to lock the pads in a central position under the piston, and metal spreader plates are included with the model. As you can see, the profile of the outrigger beams is very good, and you can support the crane wheels free. Okay, it's boom up time! And just like the best crane models, the hydraulic ram is metal, and you lock the extension of the piston by using an Allen key on a grub screw. Oh, and I almost forgot, there's another feature on the carrier deck, and that's a fold-down ladder, so you don't have to jump up like some giant frog. Here we are with the truck in Midtstøl colours, and we're loading up the counterweight. The crane turns very smoothly so we can accurately position the load, and then with some skillful operating of the hoist, we can lower the counterweight slab in position. Once all the counterweight is in place, then the best feature of the model comes into play, and we can rotate the crane around over the top of the counterweight, and because everything lines up, the lift pistons engage, and then we can do what the real crane does, which is to lift the counterweight using the pistons. Except we don't have the crane's hydraulics to use, we just have hydraulic hands. This particular bit of functionality works very well, and it's realistic too. But the proof comes if we can now rotate the crane with the counterweight up, and as you can see, it all works perfectly. Oh, and if you want to add a bit more weight, you can put on the cheek weights. Telescoping the boom is done in the usual way, and it's quite smooth as you would expect. And it's nice to see that there are graphics on every boom section. Each boom section also has free locking points at 46, 92 and 100%. To get a bit more height, let's add on the fly jib, and first we'll disconnect the pin using the tweezers that come with the model. And with the jib off, there's one thing we need to do, which is to raise the guide pulley. You can pin it into position, but on the review model it was stiff enough just to stay where it was put. Adding on the fly jib is also easy to do, and you lock it in place with 2 long steel pins. All you need to do is to push something long and thin into a small hole. This is easy to do, but like everything else, practice makes perfect. With the jib on, you can then change the reeving and attach the single line hook. The fly jib also has other features. You can split it at the midpoint, and you can also adjust its angle using the stiff hydraulic ram. This is a great looking model in the colours of the Norwegian company Midtstøl. The graphics are excellent, and that goes well with the high level of detail and excellent functionality, and it's also a great combination if you have the support truck in Midtstøl colours. This is a really nice limited edition, which is excellent.